So, a Virginia judge's actions today could offer a major step forward for a British family seeking justice for their teenage son, who was allegedly killed by a U.S. government employee. 19-year-old Harry Dunn died in a motorcycle crash in the UK back in 2019. British authorities charged Anne Sacoolas in connection with that death. She worked for the State Department and she was driving on the wrong side of the road. So, she claimed diplomatic immunity and swiftly flew back to the United States. You remember this story. Imtiaz Tyab has been following this story from the very beginning and is joining us now from London. Imtiaz, I remember that you were one of the first journalists to really sit down with the family of the victim, and they talked about their frustration when it came to getting some sort of justice or even being able to speak with Mrs. Sacoolas. So bring us up to speed. Why is today so significant for the Dunn family? And remind us the details of this case.
Anne-Marie, good to talk to you. Yeah, this has been such an extraordinary case to follow over the last nearly 2 years. We have to remember Harry Dunn died just outside of a British military base here in the UK in 2019, in August of 2019, and his family has just been on this extraordinary roller coaster ride to get justice. Well, that ride has now taken them to a court in Virginia, where they're going to face this civil case that is presided over Judge Thomas Ellis, who has essentially said to Anne Sacoolas, the woman at the center of this case, who admits to negligence in causing this accident, that she will face this civil trial after trying to dismiss at least pretty large chunks of it in court just a couple of weeks ago. The judge said that although they welcomed the fact that she acknowledged her negligence here, the fact that she refused to go to the UK to face justice there means that this civil case will move forward. Now, what can we expect today? Well, Justice Thomas Ellis is essentially going to set out a timetable for which Ms. Sacoolas and her legal team will essentially present themselves and offer a deposition ahead of this trial, which is supposed to start in a really meaningful way later this year. We also now know that her husband, Jonathan Sacoolas, who was working at that British military base, where a lot of Americans live, it should be said, when they're here in the UK, that he too will be caught up in this case down to a law dating back to the 1950s, where the wife of a husband working for a military base could also be implicated in a civil case, and that's what we're seeing here. So I know it sounds like a lot of legalese, but really what we're seeing here is the first meaningful steps for this family to seek some sort of justice in a court of law.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about this family is their complaint and concerns made it all the way up to President Trump. They spoke to CBS this morning in 2019 after they had met with President Trump at the White House. And the sort of odd thing about that meeting was that Anne Sacoolas was actually in the building at the time as well. They never met her. And you can probably remember better than me, but I think they were not even aware that she was there until after the meeting was over. But they spoke about, you know, why they felt it was important that she returned to the UK. I want to play some of that sound.
She needs to come back and face the justice system. You know, she needs to do this for herself. She needs to do this for us. She needs to do this for her children, set a good example to her children. You know, she's held her hands up again in a statement this week saying that it was entirely her fault. She made a mistake. So stand up to your mistakes. Take ownership of them.
So the Trump administration refused to extradite Sacoolas. Are they hopeful that, you know, things may be a little bit different with a new administration in place?
Yeah, Marie, see, I was with Harry Dunn's parents when they traveled to the U.S., not realizing that it would take them all the way to the White House, all the way to the Oval Office to meet President Trump, who had Anne Sacoolas waiting in another room to meet the family. The family declined because they said that they would only meet with Ms. Sacoolas in some sort of meaningful legal context, and that they felt railroaded by then President Trump. Now, when we interviewed them afterwards, in which you played that clip, you could still hear that Harry Dunn's mother is still very clear-sighted and very sort of clear about what she wants, which is Anne Sacoolas to face a judge in the UK. UK. Now, all of this it comes to a head because we now have a new administration, as you point out, and this family is really hoping that they could see some sort of meaningful change with the Biden administration. Now, it has to be said that it's unlikely that the State Department is going to change its position because it could have an effect on other diplomats, other people working for the U.S. government abroad. But when it comes to President Biden himself, what they're hoping is that his own personal history could influence his decision to have Anne Sacoolas extradited to the UK, which is what the family wants. What is that history? We have to remember that many decades ago, Joe Biden's first wife and young daughter were killed in a car crash. Harry Dunn, of course, was also killed in a car crash. We know that President Biden's career has been defined by his humanity and has been defined by his care for those who have suffered loss, those who have lost loved ones, and that they're hoping that they understand, or that he understands on a really deep and visceral level, their suffering, and that because he understands that he may reverse this decision and have Anne Sacoolas sent to the UK to face charges. And remember, she has been charged here in the UK for causing death through unlawful driving, and it's a case, if she is convicted, where she could face up to 16 years in prison.
You know, when this happened, the case made national headlines here, but we also had an administration that was a sort of a headline-generating administration. So it didn't stay at the top, I think, of minds for a very long time. Then, you know, in comes the pandemic, and that's basically all we're talking about news-wise. What has the reaction been like in the UK in terms of its news coverage and the general feeling about how things have unfolded?
I can't even begin to sort of understate or overstate just how extraordinary it has been. Harry Dunn's parents are on very big British talk shows, news programs, almost every week, sometimes multiple times a week, bringing this story to the headlines on a level which you rarely see. Again, as you said, we've been in a huge global pandemic. There are so many other things. Britain was dealing with Brexit. And yet this story somehow cuts through the noise, because I think so many people just relate to Harry Dunn's parents, which is here are these two people who come from a small village in the middle of England, who had very normal lives, who were raising their kids just like anyone else, and have been thrust into the extraordinary spotlight because of their son's death and the person who caused it, which was Anne Sacoolas, who admits to causing it, and the fact that she left the country under diplomatic immunity, and this big question mark as to whether or not she had diplomatic immunity or not. The family has always said she does not. They believe that they are justified in this view, and their lawyers do as well. But the U.S. government has said consistently that she does have diplomatic immunity, and that's why we're seeing this civil case underway today.
Such a fascinating and heartbreaking case for everyone involved. Imtiaz, thank you very much.